In that time, I have always thought that it would be beneficial to get more public involvement in our meetings. To give everybody here some perspective, it has been over 2 years since we have had anyone make a public comment at one of our meetings. Additionally, this is the first time that I've had to call or attend a special board meeting in my 4.5 years. So if it seems like we aren't familiar with this, well, we aren't. So please be understanding as we try to deal with the issues at hand. I would be remiss if I did not take this opportunity to let everyone know that our regular monthly meetings are normally held on the second Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. Our next monthly meeting is currently scheduled for February 9th. Also, I would like to note that the next municipal elections will be held in the spring of 2023. At that time, 2 board seats will be up for a new 6-year term. Members of the library board are nonpartisan, volunteer, unpaid, elected representatives of the St. Charles Public Library District. I encourage anyone interested in serving to contact the library when the municipal elections are announced later this year. There's been a lot of information circulating around the community regarding the closure of the library. Our #1 goal is the safety of our patrons and our employees. Late Thursday afternoon, we narrowly avoided a patron-on-patron altercation. Afterwards, the library started receiving phone calls threatening the health and safety of our staff and patrons. Looking at social media amplified our level of concern. At that time, with the cooperation of the St. Charles Police Department, it was determined that it was in the best interest of public safety to close the library. We are continuing to work with the St. Charles Police Department to determine the proper steps to safely reopen the library. Until then, the library will remain closed to in-person visits. Our virtual services and drive-up window remain available to patrons. We will keep the public updated on our plans on our website. We are eager to get this new building back open to our community as soon as possible. Our rules for public participation in meetings state that citizens' comments concerning agenda items shall be limited to 3 minutes per comment for a total time of 15 minutes per topic. We have 1 topic on the agenda tonight. Due to the virtual nature of this special meeting, all comments were requested to be submitted prior to the meeting. In the interest of time, we have tried to limit the repetitions of some of the comments for our rules of participation. Going a little off script here, we are planning to read citizens' comments for on-agenda items for 15 minutes. Any that we do not get to, we will use our 30 minutes for non-agenda items to read as many as possible in the remaining time. So are there any communications and citizens' comments for on-agenda items that were submitted prior to the meeting? Edith, please read those comments aloud.
Sure. Okay, this is from Kathleen V, St. Charles residents. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. If the intention to deprive God's children of oxygen remains, perhaps the library would be willing to allow unmasked patrons a separate time to use the library. 2 options a week with 2 to 3 hours for family flexibility. That would be greatly appreciated. The next comment is, let's see, from Alice DiCardo, St. Charles residents. My name is Alice. I've been a resident of St. Charles for 10 years. My family immigrated here from Italy 100 years ago and took root in Chicago. We moved to the suburbs when I was a kid and have always loved the family feel of St. Charles. I'm hoping this experience helps you to see how wrongly your staff is treating its residents. On a normal day at the library with my 5 children, I was approached by not 1, not 2, but 3 staff members, including your security guard. Did I damage books? No. Did I get belligerent with another patron? No. My crime, and I say that loosely, was my 7-year-old twins with documented medical conditions had face shields on. Even after offering to show their doctor's note, I was told to leave if they could not wear a mask. I should also add that myself and my 5-year-olds had masks on. This is discrimination. You cannot tell me that I have to use your drive-up service. This is not a reasonable accommodation. What you're doing is disgusting and illegal. Not only did I leave in tears, but I shared my experience. And would you believe there's a whole community of us who have experienced the same harassment? Imagine that. Your policies are flawed, and I shared that view with your library director, Edith. She was less than helpful. I asked for some flexibility with the shields. We keep our distance. I was willing to wear a mask and she refused. So the next time we came, we didn't wear masks and will continue not to wear masks. I urge you to rethink your policies. The mask mandate is not a law, and you banning me for 90 days for not wearing a mask is crazy. It also goes against your library Bill of Rights. I believe it says a person's right to use the library should not be denied or abridged because of origin, age, background, or view. I will tell anyone who will listen what you're doing and what you did. I will reach out to every news station, radio show, and podcast to deny 5 children the use of the library that my taxes pay for is terrible, and you should all be ashamed. Next comment is from Mira F. I would like to, I'm horrified that there would be threats of physical violence made to library staff. I'm also horrified that the library would ban taxpayers from using their public facilities for not wearing a mask. Unfortunately, the law does not afford you the ability to make such a maneuver. You are under no lawful authority to require your employees or your patrons to wear a mask. There is no statutory law that requires you, your employees, or your patrons to wear a mask. These are guidelines of the State Department of Health and local health boards. Any other order is unlawful and must be challenged. Preventing entry to your establishment of someone not wearing a mask violates these laws: the U.S. Constitution, First and Fourth Amendments, federal civil rights laws, Title 11, Section 2000. If you refuse entry to your establishment, which is open to the public, you are also restricting the free movement of an individual and engaging in false imprisonment. Declaring this as your library policy does not absolve you from your violation of the law. I certainly hope the library decides to open its doors and not discriminate against those unable to wear masks. And I hope swift legal action is brought upon you should you choose otherwise. The next comment is from Max G from St. Charles. First, there was a panic, then there was power. Now the wheels are coming off. It's time to build. The St. Charles Library, along with all businesses and public institutions, can no longer be the tip of Governor Pritzker's failed attempt to use masks to mitigate COVID-19. I congratulate him personally, like a mad scientist intent on making his failed experiment work. He extended his EO for 6 months to stop a gain of function mutating virus. The results are in. Masks do not mitigate SARS-CoV-2. 46 other states figured this out long ago. Clearly, the governor and the party has no exit strategy, and man, do they wish for one. This brings me to the St. Charles Public Library, forced to follow this failed strategy. You, like me, fell for the lockdowns, then the masking, and now for sure vaccinate to stop. Let me remind you, a man-made mutating virus humanity has never before experienced. You and your staff have been working full-time for a governor who has no off-ramp and a party committed to use COVID-19, doubling down and turning on its citizens because that is all that is left. He has put your staff into the position of being unpaid mask police with no law broken or violation to be charged. SARS-CoV-2 is real. I contracted it and forgot to get sick, but I did gain top of chart antibodies for my antibody test, which according to 700,000 data points in Israel means 13 to 27 times better than the vaccinated. Oh yes, antibodies and natural immunity are dismissed by the medical community that has been MIA with any pre-hospitalization protocol. And this is with 300 medical schools, including Harvard and Mayo. Zero, nada. So when you believe I have gone out on a limb or lost my mind, call your doctor and ask what to do for SARS-CoV-2 you just tested positive for. Answer, isolate, and call us if you get worse. Summary, proof positive after 6 months in Illinois, masks do not mitigate a gain of function mutating virus on a humanity that has no natural antibodies, nor do the masks worn, fabric or paper prevent infections, and were never touted by the medical community to do that. It did, however, feel like I was doing something. I'm simply tired of playing this game, masking to please you and the parties drumbeat for a 6-month failed policy of forced masking when it has no effect on the transmission and infection rates of SARS-CoV-2. Maintain your independence and freedom of choice and remove the no mask policy. Make it mask optional until one day Governor Pritzker declares all clear. Next letter is from Megan D. of St. Charles resident and library patron. I'm writing to let you know I am in full support of the mask mandate at the library and following the statewide rules right now, especially right now with Omicron cases being so high. Public health rules are important, and I hope you do not bend to the will of this very loud minority of voices who bully our school boards and now our public library. I am so sorry you've had to experience this bullying, and I hope the library is able to open again safely. Next comment is from Ginny S. Thank you for calling a meeting Saturday, January 22, 2022, in a swift response to this week's anti-mask protest and subsequent challenges. As a St. Charles patron, I appreciate and support the library staff and want them to know they are valued and respected. I also value your service as board members representing the community. It is my hope that the library will not succumb to the pressure of those who take an anti-mask stance. I support enforcement of the mandate for the safety of library guests and library employees. I have been berated and verbally abused in my workplace for enforcing masks, so I recognize the fear and anxiety that it creates for staff and hope that the board and the library administration will do all that they can to help them feel safe and secure while balancing services to patrons. Next comment is from Courtney F. Thank you for hosting the meeting. For 20 years, I have frequented the library, even more so in the last 14 years with my family. The library has been a second home to us, especially as a homeschool family. Recently, though, it has not been a welcoming, comfortable place. We have been unwelcomed coming into the building. Librarians are masked, staring at their computers. Events have been canceled because of health risks, even with all the new space. My children no longer feel comfortable speaking with the librarians, which is heartbreaking as they so enjoyed talking over books and going to find them together. And recently, the librarians calling the police on patrons. The mask mandate is unlawful and harmful in so many ways. It's time to put the masks away. After 2 years, I think we can all come to the conclusion masks and mandates are more harm than helpful. The next comment is from Christian P. I would like, let's see, after recently moving to St. Charles, my family hoped to utilize our local library as a resource for children. These mask mandate incidents and the decision to close the library is concerning, especially when their decision obstruct an individual, family's medical, religious, or otherwise personal exemptions and reasons with a different view. They are clearly an overreaction from people unqualified to address the public in a civil manner, lacking the tools and training for public de-escalation, and an overreach of authority by limiting taxpayer-funded resources and facilities from those that rightfully should be available. I would appreciate a clarification from the board defending these actions, particularly when they contradict their own mission statement and Bill of Rights. These actions by the Director Craig and library staff to deny or abridge access and to intimidate, even with the threat of police presence and removal, does not support the growth nor provides a spirit of community, particularly to those with different views. Next comment is Susan S. from St. Charles. I believe the St. Charles Public Library has gone the extra mile in accommodating the library patrons during this pandemic. I speak for myself in saying that without the library and their dedicated staff, it would have been much more difficult to endure the last 2 years. I know everyone is tired of wearing masks, but please remember that there are many people with compromised immune issues. I don't think anyone would like to feel responsible knowing that their actions might harm someone else. Yes, most of us have been vaccinated and probably have our boosters. Right now, I have a friend in the hospital seriously ill with COVID, and he had all 3 shots. When comparing the inconvenience of wearing a mask and the value of someone's life, which are more important? Next comment is from Christina R., patron of resident of St. Charles. Dear St. Charles Library board members, as an active resident and mother, I have been extremely concerned by the actions of the St. Charles librarians recently. Our library has been closed for a year due to renovations paid by our tax dollars. Since reopening, we have visited a few times. My children and I were followed and reprimanded by a security guard for not having our masks up enough. The librarians were cold and unwelcoming each time we visited. The library should be a place that everyone feels welcome, especially children, without discrimination. I pray that the librarians who are employed by our tax dollars will regain their passion for encouraging a love of reading and learning instead of discriminating based on compliance to mandates and laws, questionable science, and a complete disregard for individual choice. Thank you for your time and consideration. Next comment is from Allison L., resident of St. Charles. Hi, I am a St. Charles resident and library frequent flyer. Based on this experience, I'd like to share some good news. No one is forcing anyone to come to the library and wear a mask, but I hope that you do come to the library because their resources and staff are fantastic. And if you come to the library right now, you have to wear a mask to try to protect other patrons and that fantastic staff. If you don't want to wear a mask or can't, you still deserve and have a right to use our jewel of a library. In fact, they have thoughtfully created accommodations for you and have been offering them throughout the pandemic. Reach out to them with your needs and wants, and they'll work their library magic. In contrast, threatening library staff about policies out of their control, deliberately violating and disrespecting library spaces, puts other patrons and staff at risk of harm, and creating and sharing false information is not acceptable and cannot be tolerated. Full stop. Thank you, take care, and good luck to all. Next is Sam P., resident of St. Charles. It is unfortunate staff members at the library are being harassed for doing what is right for our community. I fully support the St. Charles Public Library in its decision to adhere to the current mask mandate. Please do not lower our community standards to the lowest vocal denominator.
Edith, you have about 3 more minutes.
Thank you. Next comment is Terry H., a Batavia resident who supports my local library and all the libraries in the Fox Valley area. Based on the article in the Chronicle, I strongly support the library. There are options for those who choose to not to wear masks and cannot wear masks. They can participate in many other ways. Parents and individuals need to consider the greater good. Who will be most harmed if their children do not wear masks? Possibly themselves, more likely others. We need to realize that we are not only responsible for our individual selves, but all those around us. It isn't about freedom, it's about responsibility. Next one is from Jenny Lynn. I just want to say I'm so disappointed anyone here in St. Charles would be threatening the library of mask mandates. I read the article in Patch just now, and I'm not one to comment or contact typically over articles I read, but I'm so embarrassed anyone would act this way in my town that I just had to say something. For what it's worth, I totally support these mandates. I love the library, and anyone who messes with you messes with me. I also commented this in the Patch. I'm so ashamed anyone from my hometown would be threatening our library. Like, seriously, people. Let's stop attacking our neighbors, our fellow Illinoisans and fellow Americans over such petty nonsense. Can't we all just agree to disagree, compromise, and coexist like civil human beings? And P.S., saying and doing angry or harmful things is not how you get what you want in life. It's like toddlers throwing tantrums when they don't get their way. Next comment is by Gloria K., St. Charles resident. I strongly support the mask mandate and the library's compliance. This is a difficult time for us all and for those of us at high risk because of age and/or medical issues, even fully if vaccinated. We can only use public facilities if everyone is in compliance with the state's mask mandate. This dangerous pandemic will be over sooner if we all do our part.
If that is the 15-minute timer.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we have a lot more comments. And so what we are going to do, I assume, Edith, we have a lot more comments.
Yes.
So we will use the time at the end of the meeting, the 30 minutes for citizens' comments, to continue reading those comments in the order that they were received into the email. So moving on to our the agenda item number 3. The topic on the agenda is a discussion on enforcement of library policies. The library has a procedure to respond to individuals who violate our policies. The first step is to warn the individual. If the individual persists or repeats the offense, the second step is to either ask the patron to leave for the day or to ban the patron from the library for a period of time. The period of time varies from 30 to 90 days, depending on the severity of the incident. If someone who is banned from the library is found on library property, they are deemed to be trespassing. Trespassing is enforceable by the police, and the library can then take further legal action against the individual. Do any board members have any questions about the procedure for the enforcement of library policies? Hearing no comments, I would like to make a motion to go into closed session pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2C8 for the purposes discussing security procedures, school building safety and security, and the use of personnel and equipment to respond to an actual, a threatened, or a reasonably potential danger to the safety of employees, students, staff, the public, or public property. I need a roll call vote.
Second that motion.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Mike. Roll
Trustee,
call vote, please.
Trustee Gebhardt,
Aye.
Trustee Kaluza,
He needs to be unmuted.
Trustees could unmute themselves, please. Trustee Kaluza, can you motion with your hand up or down? I don't know if you can we do that, Rob?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay,
I'm
There she is.
unmuted. Aye.
okay,
Thank you.
great, thank you. Trustee Steinley,
She's muted as well. She was muted and then, yeah. Thumbs up, Dr. Steinle?
Okay, finally, I'm able to, you were not allowing me to unmute. That's why I couldn't unmute. That has to be allowed by the moderator. Anyway, aye.
Thank you.
thank you. Trustee Hill,
Aye.
Trustee Hampton. Trustee Frost,
Aye.
Trustee Cruz,
And she is,
Aye.
all right. The ayes have it. We are in closed session. We are going to, now all trustees mute your microphones and dim your cameras. We'll be back after closed session.
Rob, we're back, Rob.
All right. Thank you, Pam. If you could unmute all of the trustee members. We are back in open session. I will wait for everyone to be unmuted. Claudia, if you could, you're the last one. There we go. All right. We are back in open session. I would like to thank everybody for waiting and apologize for the delay. I would like to make a motion that the board of the St. Charles Public Library District supports the enforcement of all current library policies, including closing the library building when the safety of patrons and staff are threatened. Is there a second?
Second.
A roll call vote, please.
Trustee Gebhardt,
Aye.
trustee Kaluza,
Aye.
trustee Steinle,
Aye.
trustee Hill,
Aye.
trustee Hampton,
Aye.
trustee Frost,
Aye.
trustee Cruz.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carried. I've been watching a lot of videos lately. I would like to state that nobody is perfect and we are all learning through this experience. That being said, I would like to make a motion that the board of the St. Charles Public Library District supports our director, Edith Craig, and her efforts. Is there a second?
So moved. Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Gebhardt,
Aye.
trustee Kaluza,
Aye.
trustee Steinle,
Aye.
trustee Hill,
Aye.
trustee Hampton,
Aye.
trustee Frost,
Aye.
trustee Cruz.
Aye.
The motion carried. Do the trustees have any other comments regarding agenda item number 3? Moving on to the communications and citizens comments on non-agenda items, we are going to continue to read the comments received prior to the meeting in the order that they were received. Edith, we are going to do this for a total of 30 minutes, at which point we will, I will call for an adjournment.
Okay, so the first comment is from Dean R. Comment is, my name is in my signature. We live at 911 North Avenue in St. Charles. My wife and I are appalled by what the library did. If the library wants to be very strict in rule adherence, they should be much better trained to understand exemptions to medical needs of all visitors to this public place, especially young children with medical exemption. True to form, once pressed on how they are acting, the library administration seamlessly jumps into the role of victim. You know, people are threatening us and we are just trying to do what's best for everyone. I love the narrative, just trying to do what's best for everyone. Sounds good. In this situation, the reality is the library was much closer to harmed children and a family because the library did not understand medical exemptions. Before you can mandate the rules like little cops, you should know the rules. After all, children depend on you to act like it. The next comment is Cynthia F., and she is a St. Charles resident. Dear St. Charles, Illinois Public Library Board of Directors, we learned of threats to our library on the news yesterday. The news reported that these threats were via phone calls and email. As patrons of decades, we were greatly disheartened. We have had frequent interactions with numerous library staff over the past 20 years or more. Every staff member has been warm and welcoming and gone the extra mile to help us with our many requests. Our family utilizes the library for almost every available resource, including museum passes and near daily book requests. To say that the library has been hospitable and accommodating, educational and supportive would be a gross understatement. Our family's particular use has been perhaps extraordinary considering the volume of materials that we request, including purchase requests and research and many reference questions. We have always been impressed and awed at the variety of services. The staff bends over backwards to be one of the greatest service possible. The staff bends over backwards to be of the greatest service possible at all times. Consider the stress of coronavirus restrictions and the massive undertaking of the recent remodeling and move of materials back and forth to our enhanced library campus. One might expect some compromise in the delivery of services. This has not been our experience at all. The speed of turnaround and the grace with which these offerings are rendered has remained intact despite unprecedented challenges. It is heartbreaking and devastating to contemplate that our beloved and cherished library staff have received pushback of any kind, much less any form of threat via email or voicemail. What the library staff deserve is thanks and credit in their brave efforts to serve and to keep our community safe in adhering to our governor's mandate. One might wonder how many national deaths and even local deaths and severe illness it would take to impress upon some citizens the severity of this highly transmittable illness. Simple masks are not a political statement, and at this time are really not even a choice in certain public venues. They are simply a life-saving, easily accessible, inexpensive, readily available, and necessary temporary preventative measure, right up there with hand washing and social distancing of other types. The efficacy of mask wearing in the prevention of the spread of coronavirus has been well demonstrated scientifically and is implemented by many institutions in order to save lives. While we as Americans are free to protest and together and to voice our opinions, it must never be threats of any type. Our public servants are already spread thin by many other threats, and to add to this burden is unreasonable and fair. Coming into a public facility without a mask, knowing full well what the current mandate is, seems like a temper tantrum. It does not represent choice to our children, but shows disrespect and lack of compliance to reasonable and even legal mandates, even if temporary. There are rules in order to protect our freedoms everywhere, and it is particularly important to set an example since children need to be compliant in order to stay safe at school and in other settings where people gather. It is our hope that during this evening's meeting that the board will remain firm in enforcing safety measures until the governor has ruled differently. We know that you will reassess at that time, and we hope that you will keep necessary protective measures in place so that the majority of compliant patrons can continue to enjoy the library. We know that you have extensive services online for people in their homes as well. It is always better to err in favor of safety in this crucial times. This has been unprecedented and has been difficult upon businesses and institutions to understand what to do and to flex with new information. But at no point should any institution be bullied into acquiescing and accommodating those who would be threatening. It is not the library's intolerance, but the intolerance of a few who would jeopardize the health and safety of the majority in order to assert what they think are their rights under the Constitution. It causes trouble and discord and disharmony and destroys the peace and safety of the majority of patrons who are happy to simply throw on a mask for a few minutes to help keep the vulnerable safe. We understand that this is complicated and complex, but it really does seem like a no-brainer. We hope that our library will not yield to these pressures, but will stand firm, and that the community and any safety resources that exist will rally behind you until this health crisis passes. Thank you for all your time and extraordinary help and service. Sincerely, the Fungard family. The next comment is from Christine. She lives at 123 South 13th Street in St. Charles. I just want to say that we are overall just very tired of this division when it comes to masks. In all honesty, I believe that we know deep down that they don't work, but it is a way to make certain people feel better. As a mom, going to the library without a mask was a way to make a calm statement that we would like to be able to go to the public library with our children and choose to be maskless. It was a calm event, aside from one library staff member stating that we were making a scene in front of our children and that the police have been called. Do you really want to be escorted out with your children? Do you want people to see that? I'm just appalled at how quickly the staff called the police on moms and young children. I think that closing the library was a response out of embarrassment, and fear, because the police did arrive and say that the mask mandate is not a law, so they cannot charge us with anything for not wearing a mask. This whole situation is just ridiculous. Let's focus on real health and safety matters. Please rethink your strategy about masks and try to remember that the survival rate for COVID is 99%. The next comment is Ryan Tippins, and he's an independent journalist from Clinton, South Carolina. Let's see, he has a question that he would like asked at the meeting. The question is, how long will St. Charles Public Library continue to segregate those who are unvaccinated? And has the board finally learned anything about the public's perseverance to live freely? The next comment is from Jennifer. Please remove the mask mandate. This is not a law and is therefore not enforceable. The vaccine is available for all those that choose it. There are those that choose not to. The masks do not work. I can show you plenty of videos of people blowing smoke into a mask and out of a mask. We, the taxpayers, make the decisions. We decided to spend $18 million for a beautiful facility with all room to social distance. Masking just gives a placebo effect, giving people the confidence to ignore distance. They don't work. Children are proven to be at little to no risk. You are affecting them emotionally and changing a generation to being fearful. As you may or may not know, there is much to be said on the accuracy of all this. Hard to believe the science when all are to mask up to protect those that have the shot. Listen to that logic. You've got the shot so you would not get infected. Why does the mask matter then? I come down to freedom of choice. If you want protection, get a shot. If you don't, that's your choice. If you want to wear a mask, do so, but don't force others to. Again, get the shot to protect yourself and wear a mask if you want to. If you don't want one or the other, that's your choice. We have been to multiple states in the last 2 years where they don't have such policies. Illinois and New York and California all have these rules. No one else does. It doesn't alter the spread of the virus. Let's get over the stupid stuff now and let the kids be kids. And if we're afraid to serve the public of St. Charles, maybe we should hire different staff to run the library. Next comment is Robert J., resident of St. Charles. As someone who has used the St. Charles Public Library for over 30 years, I was saddened to hear of the recent closing. The library district cannot give in to a very vocal, underinformed minority. The group that entered the library this week with the sole purpose of intimidating librarians is a great example of the mentality of people who are trying to subvert science. It is my hope that the St. Charles Police cooperate with the library to provide security so that the librarians can do their jobs without being harassed. Anti-vax and anti-mask groups will continue their intimidation tactics despite the scientific facts that refute their beliefs. I hope that the library continues to stand its ground and protect the workers that provide such a valuable service to our community. Libraries are important beacons of knowledge. Those that do not respect the mandates obviously do not have the same views of the library. Please know that the community stands behind the library employees and values their contribution. Thank you. Next comment is Scott F. from a resident of St. Charles. My wife and I are recent arrivals in St. Charles, 4 years. We love the St. Charles Public Library and commend the staff and board on managing through the pandemic, as well as the wonderful renovation of the physical library facility. Bravo. I saw the news items about closing the library and want to make 3 observations. 1, the library is on the edge of a significant public relations crisis. The situation can potentially create real damage to your image and level of support in the community. The statewide mask mandate has put you in the role of maintaining compliance. The normally friendly and helpful staff must also now function as the library police on behalf of the Illinois executive order. The news items that indicate you are working with the St. Charles Police, while understandable, only underscores the sense that the solution being sought is how to restrict the bad actors, sending threatening emails to the exclusion of addressing why in the world anybody would threaten a library in the first place. 2, the citizens of St. Charles are not your enemies. Hunkering down in some sort of defensive mode would be, in my opinion, a mistake. The library is a community asset, not a fortress. My observation is that the citizens of St. Charles have many reasons for questioning the mask mandate currently in place, including A, the mask mandate in Illinois has not provided any demonstrably better outcomes in terms of COVID morbidity or positivity rates than in states without the mandate. B, the mask mandate is largely ignored in many public and private establishments in St. Charles and throughout Illinois, with no consequences to the patrons of those public and private establishments, the exception being Chicago and Cook County. And C, this leaves many to conclude the wearing of masks as a largely irrelevant, sort of like a mandate for all to wear a purple hat on Thursdays, or be denied admission to the library. This seems a poor choice as the defining issue on which the library board is willing to sacrifice its good standing with the patrons of St. Charles. And 3, the opportunity to partner with the community for a better future. I believe you have an opportunity to, yes, take prudent safety measures on behalf of staff and patrons with appropriate consultation involving law enforcement, but also to make some sort of public statement that you are in dialogue with public health officials and/or the office of the governor to advocate for an end to or modification of the mask mandate. I noticed that the St. Charles Government Operations Committee decided it would not require a vaccination verification for business patrons in St. Charles, and the mayor of Naperville has called for an end to the mask mandate. Neither of these actions actually ended the Illinois mask mandate, but they do give a signal to the public that city officials are aware of the situation and not punitively enforcing a policy that many have concluded in perspective and practice is no longer worth enforcing. A public statement and a masking optional or no masks required in study rooms or meeting rooms of the library might be an option. You all know the dynamics of library administration better than I, but this is a critical moment when what you decide and how it is communicated to the staff and the public is especially important. The future relationship between the library and its community can either be strengthened or damaged by your actions now. Next comment is David T., and he is also a resident of St. Charles. I'm writing in support of your mask policy at the St. Charles Public Library. I frequent the library with my 2 sons, one who isn't eligible yet for a vaccine. We feel you've created a safe place for us to utilize the facilities and would hesitate to return if this policy is lifted or loosened. We feel this needs to stay in place until health officials recommend differently, not a social media account of outsiders that feed misinformation. Changing this policy will also empower those making threats to staff to use the same approach at other libraries. We need to follow health officials' guidance across all libraries and continue to keep this a safe place for your patrons. Lastly, as a husband to one of your employees, I strongly suggest added security to be put in place to also protect your staff. Your staff needs to feel as safe as your patrons. You are all amazing and truly appreciated. Don't forget that the community has your back. Next comment, Kim S. Hi there. I'm a citizen whose taxes support the library and a patron. I 100% fully support the mask requirement at the library. Just as shirts and shoes are required in public places, other than the swimming pool, given the current pandemic, we should mask up in this space to help keep workers and other patrons safe. I find it disgusting what Awake Illinois did coming into our community with their vile hatred and staging their demonstration on social media for more crazies to make threats against the library. Please stay strong. We support our library and want to keep our staff and patrons healthy. Thank you for all you do. Next comment is Jill S. Dear Library Board, I'm a frequent patron of the St. Charles Library as well as my children. I have appreciated the library following the CDC and state guidelines regarding masks. Our family have felt safe coming to the library in this time. I am sad to learn there have been threats to the library staff. No one should have to be worried about going to work. The library staff have been cheerful and kind when we are there. The staff is very much appreciated by our family. I hope the individuals making the threats are found. I'm wondering if the threats are coming from actual residents here or outsiders, as we saw with the school board meetings. We need to come together as a community and care about each other. I hope this is resolved soon and the library can reopen with masks. Next comment is by Grace C. To whom it may concern. This all started when a mom who was wearing a mask and her child who was wearing a shield had the cops called on them for the child not wearing a mask. This is appalling that your librarians lack the compassion to handle these situations accurately. While no kid should be forced to wear a mask, which most states have realized, this family found an alternative to try to appease your fears and rules, yet you lack the basic critical thinking skills to realize they pose no real harm to you. Instead, you called the cops. It is amazing that your library is still strictly enforcing this mask mandate after 2 years. There is a multitude of evidence that masks are ineffective and do not curb the spread of an airborne respiratory virus. On top of that, the World Health Organization has recommended against masking kids under 6 and only encouraging mask use in 6 to 10-year-olds. The CDC guidelines have not been adopted by most states. Most states leave it up to local control, and in those states, most are mask optional, especially for kids. Alabama, Alaska, Arkansas, Colorado, Florida, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maine, Michigan, Minnesota, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Vermont, Virginia, West Virginia, Wisconsin, and Wyoming all do not require masks statewide. That is 29 states. Then there's Georgia, which is mask-free except for major cities like Atlanta. But that in Atlanta, it is only kids over 10-year-old. Nevada is statewide, but for people over age of 9. Not only that, but most states or cities requiring our face covering following these guidelines have clauses like these, like this one in Maryland. Cloth face coverings should not be placed on young children under age 2 and under the executive order are not required under the age of 5. Anyone who has trouble breathing or is unconscious, incapacitated, or otherwise unable to remove the mask without assistance. Customers with disabilities who cannot wear a cloth face mask, plastic full face shield, or other suitable face covering shall be provided reasonable accommodations in accordance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. Customers cannot be asked invasive questions about a disability or asked to provide medical documentation or other proof of a disability. Employees or staff that cannot wear a face covering due to a disability may request reasonable accommodations in accordance with the employer's disability policies and procedures. An employer's policies and procedures may require documentation to grant reasonable accommodations. Even in our own state, many places recognize limitations that allow for face shields or nothing and realize they have no right to ask questions on a person's health status. I urge your library to be more compassionate in your future interactions with the people you serve. The next comment is Leah B. I support and will only patronize organizations that are following virus mitigation procedures recommended by health experts. Please keep mask mandate. I am concerned for the safety of all and appreciate that you have taken necessary measures to protect our community. Next is Eric T. Hello, I saw the news that the library had been closed and I want to email in support of the library staff. I recently moved to St. Charles to be closer to my nephews and they are always at the library. The masking guidelines have been great because they always have to deal with threats of COVID because of being in class with other children. So the fact that the library enforces masking has been a big thing for our family. Thank you for all you do and please keep enforcing the guidelines. I think it's important to not let the people who think it's okay to threaten to get their way because they will see it as okay and continue to do it to others. The next comment is from Larry G. Of St. Charles. First, I would like to thank each of you board members for all of the work you have accomplished since the beginning of the pandemic to protect the health and safety of staff and patrons. I think it is important to note the library has worked really hard to constantly evaluate and adjust protocols to reflect constantly changing factors in the community at large. Also important to this discussion is how hard the library has worked to develop and implement reasonable accommodations for those who might not be able to comply with these protocols. No one should expect the library to make policy exceptions for unreasonable demands. This pandemic is at its very root a medical problem of a virus spread primarily via the respiratory system. In the case at hand, it is hard to ignore the unfortunate fact that a face shield does not filter any inhaled or exhaled air and offers absolutely no respiratory protection to either the wearer or to others around them, thus increasing the risk of exposure and infection to both. Medical and scientific experts all agree face masks and vaccines are the two most important factors to mitigate the risk of infection. There is a small percentage of the population unable to wear a face mask. For these library patrons, I strongly feel the library has done an outstanding and exemplary job of providing reasonable accommodation via multiple alternative opportunities for these patrons to continue to gain reasonable access to library services and resources. Please stay the course and keep up your excellent work. Next comment is Elizabeth N. and a resident of St. Charles. Regarding the library's current mask policy and enforcement thereof, including calling the police on children and their families and shutting down the majority of library spaces, events, and services to all taxpayers. All taxpayers should have equal access to the services they are funding. Library staff are violating multiple points on their own Bill of Rights, which calls for cooperating with all persons and groups concerned with resisting abridgment of free expression. And a person's right to use a library should not be denied or abridged because of background or views. Illinois is the only state in the Midwest who even has these mandates, and yet numbers demonstrate no notable benefit. Can the library demonstrate with valid data an actual significant risk increase to either health or safety here? Why are unmasked faces considered a health and safety risk so significant we have to shut down this single library in Illinois, yet libraries across much of the country are fully operational with the very same risk? Library staff are not responsible for and have absolutely no authority to enforce the mask mandate. This duty was assigned to the police and local health department. This is clearly stated in the executive order. As the police department has pointed out to your staff, masking is not law and the police will not enforce it as such. And you cannot charge your tax-paying patrons with criminal trespassing, as that charge shall not apply to being in a building which is open to the public while the building is open to the public during its normal hours of operation. COVID has less impact on much of the population served than the flu, less impact on children than the common cold, and we've never exercised such measures in the past. Are we closing pools next for risk of drowning? Banning children from vehicles? We recognize that these things would be ridiculous, and yet, based on facts, they actually make more sense than shutting down the library, based on those things being much higher risk. There has never been a single documented case of reinfection of someone with a natural immunity resulting in further transmission. It is especially illogical to continue to require masks for the naturally immune, which are now a large portion of the population. As I write you tonight, there are 284 patients in the ICUs in all of Region 8, our hospital region made up of Kane and DuPage counties. With a total population of 1,449,399, this means 0.019% of our population is hospitalized. Does this truly constitute such extreme emergency measures? Do cries of assault and threat when a healthy person enters a facility unmasked really make sense? Cloth and surgical masks do not stop the spread of illness. They say so right on their packaging, and this is in line with updated CDC announcements. They do, however, cause multiple issues of harm within these children: developmental delays, mental health issues, hindrance of expression, again, see your Bill of Rights, and other physical illness among them, all demonstrated through multiple points of research. At the heart of it all, there is a serious problem of continuing to approach COVID with a one-size-fits-all declaration, and the catastrophizing of our virus that has little impact on most, treating healthy people, our children, like they are dirty and dangerous. Will we finally recognize the drastic harm the restrictions posed on everyone are causing? Each person should be free to take their precautions they deem necessary and to appropriate for themselves based on their own risk level, views, and health history. Let's end the harsh, incredibly negative division now. This was resident Blake N. from St. Charles.
Edith, you're doing a great job. You have about 5 more minutes.
Okay. Next comment is Julie P. of St. Charles. I want to express my support for the library staff in the wake of these protests and threats. Just because someone is paid by tax dollars, it does not entitle taxpayers to expect their every demand it met, nor does it mean staff are obligated to accept abusive behavior. The activist groups instigating this escalated situation are not patriots, they are bullies. Libraries are a safe third space for everyone. The policy is clearly stated. Violation of a policy can result in denial of services. End of story. Next is Shane N. of St. Charles. I read that St. Charles was closing down the library for 2 weeks in the name of safety. Where or when can we attend the meeting to learn how the taxpayers will be repaid for the closing? Also curious as to how we can strip the library of its operating budget. We're getting pretty sick of weak-minded people in government and positions of power. Thank you, concerned citizen. Sam F. of St. Charles. Dear St. Charles Library Board members, I would like to express my full support of the library's mask policies. I'm shocked and saddened that threats have been directed at library staff on account of this policy designed to protect us all during the COVID pandemic. The library staff has done a wonderful job throughout the pandemic and the expansion of the library building to continue to provide its services to the citizens of St. Charles while ensuring the safety of both staff and library patrons. I trust the board will take robust steps to ensure the safety of the library staff and will not allow itself to be cowed by threats of violence. Next comment is Connie J. of South Elgin within our district. Good morning. I was very disheartened to read about the daily threats that have been made to our library staff. That this vitriol has come to our community is profoundly sad. I want the board to know that I 100% support the library and the state masking policy, and I have absolute support of the library staff during this time. In the most strong terms, I condemn those making these threats. Thank you for your time. Next comment is Bruce D. I'm compelled to object to your authoritarian management of our public library. No law exists to discriminate against those that choose not to mask up to gain entrance into the facility to borrow books, browse, congregate, etc. Respectfully, you are acting as a tyrannical body and denying the true science. Freedom of movement exists in the overwhelming majority of the country, with only the ignorant localities shrinking in fear or having been bought off by government money. Open up to the community and embrace freedom. Next is John F., resident of St. Charles. As a resident of St. Charles, it disgusts me that some of my fellow citizens would treat the library staff so horribly. I'm grateful for the library's resources and programs that have been available to me since moving to the Fox Valley 2 decades ago. And I can't imagine behaving so abhorrently, given everything that the library has provided in that time. Even if I disagreed with the requirement of masks, which I don't, I wouldn't take out my anger on staff who have no say on indoor masking policy or its enforcement. Whatever accommodation the staff needs to feel safe is acceptable. And if the library needs to call upon citizens of conscience to speak out and support in order to drown out the noise of these foolish people, I will be happy to do so. Next comment is Nancy M. Thank you for your efforts to keep the public safe by enforcing your mask policy. Next comment is Sandy M. We are so disappointed in learning that the mask has received threatening emails and calls about masks. If wearing a mask bothers people so much, they shouldn't go to the library. They have that choice. If a person has a special challenge, deaf, etc., couldn't they have a letter or something that explains that to the librarian if they really need to communicate with them? It would not mean the challenged person doesn't need to wear a mask. We are grateful that the St. Charles Library has a mask mandate to keep us safe. My dad recently died of COVID after 40 days in the hospital. We know the consequences firsthand. Please continue your mandate. Wearing a mask is such a small price to pay to help keep COVID from spreading. Paul and Sandy M. from St. Charles. Next comment is Monica M., a neighboring Fox Valley resident. Thank you for your perseverance in sticking with the right thing to do during these difficult times. I'm so sorry you have to put up with such vile and malicious behavior with respect to the masking mandate. Keep doing the right thing. It is much appreciated by the majority of reasonable people who are helping to keep you safe. Next comment, Helen H. from St. Charles. I'd also like to loudly and publicly thank the library staff who serve this community so well. You have our full support in this important public health issue. I don't know what we would do without our library. Stay safe. Next is Maggie R. of Wheaton. Although I am not a resident of St. Charles, I am in Wheaton and have seen the behavior of this group, Awake Illinois, and others cause unnecessary disruption of businesses and other public places. I write in concern of yours and my community's safety. AI and Freedom Illinois and their anti-community efforts are keeping us in this state where we need to have all of these mitigations in place. And their behavior is escalating, as you saw this week. They are not the majority. They just have a lot of time on their hands to seek attention and publicity. Your mission statement states your value of the spirit of community, which is being blatantly disregarded. I am in support of the enforcement of library policies, with support from police protecting the employees of the library and their visitors. I support policies that prioritize the safety of the employees, and I condemned the unchecked behavior of these disorderly groups.
Thank you, Edith. I believe that was 30 minutes. Pam, could you unmute all the trustees, please? Edith, I know we did not get to all of the comments. Since we did receive them in email ahead of time, can you forward the comments to all the trustees so that they can be reviewed by the trustees?
Yes.
Thank you. I think we need Dr. Steinley still unmuted. There we go. I would like to make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I second.
Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Gebhardt,
Aye.
trustee Kaluza,
Aye.
trustee Steinley,
Aye.
trustee Hill,
I believe he left.
Trustee Hampton,
Aye.
trustee Frost,
Aye.
trustee Cruz.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. We are adjourned.